if you really want to achieve something and you tell yourself truly you believe in that concept, don't only tell yourself, tell others that you're going to do it and work on it. You're going to make it happen.
When people already know what they want, they have the plan on how to get there. They have the desire for change. They have everything except the one thing. They don't take action.
True. Oof.
What advice would you give them to make it happen?
The last 6 years, waking up in a box, getting into a box, driving that box, going to the next box, staring into a box, 8 to 4, eating from a box, going back into my box, driving back. I was literally going through this way and I was like, this is not the freedom I wanted.
For a lot of people, actually, the number one driver, the thing that keeps them going, is to prove people wrong. So we just finished an episode with Omar Albusaidy. Omar is the founder of Global Possibilities. He's a serial entrepreneur, actually started a lot of businesses. A few of them didn't work, a few of them worked successfully. And in today's episode, we focus a lot about failure and how failure can actually lead you to success. And we've all heard the quote, failure is prerequisite to success. And most people actually fail before even starting. So if you're somebody who feels like they're stuck or they're stagnant, and maybe you've had a few failures that put you down and maybe too afraid to take the next action, this episode is for you. I promise you, you're going to learn a lot, you're going to get a lot of inspiration, and this might be the episode that gets you back on track. So if you haven't yet, please like this video, and looking forward to having you on this episode. Omar, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Nido.
My pleasure. Omar, the first thing I like to start the show with is that, name of the show, as you mentioned, freedom or nothing.
Yeah.
And freedom is, can be something totally different to each person.
Yeah.
So I want to know, what is your meaning and what does freedom mean to you?
For me, freedom is mental health. Having my time dedicated to prayer, number one, my family, my friends, it's everything. And that's for me, because I'm allowed to spend time with all of these very important power and individuals. It allows me to, just live the kind of life I've always dreamt of since I was a kid. So 38 years old this year. And I'm really, really glad that I've got to achieve this stage of freedom in my life that I kind of thought maybe it was going to take a little bit longer, like later in my 40s, like late 40s, but I'm really glad that I was able to achieve it much earlier. And I really hope through this conversation that we have today, I'll be able to maybe inspire other people to kind of follow the same path.
Take us back to when you were young. I mean, it seems you've studied foreign affairs, political science. At that time, what was your dream? I mean, did you know what you wanted to do, or were you more of an adventurer?
So actually, because for grad school, I did my master's in international affairs, but my bachelor's was in marketing. And that time, when I think the only reason I studied marketing is because honestly, I'm terrible at math. I suck at math. I don't know. I couldn't take economics, which I really wanted, or finance, or even engineering, because my parents they both studied civil engineering in college. They were pretty disappointed that none of the 4 kids that they had could follow the same path. But the first year, I was actually undecided, and then after speaking to several people, and one person in particular, like my uncle, my mom's brother, his name is Isa, and Isa said to me that you have kind of like good communication skills. Why don't you take up marketing and then hone your skills to use that, and maybe you could be in that field of like sales, marketing, business development. And I listened to him, and I think it kind of worked out. I was able to find my path in that, and I think that was maybe my first. Because I did feel, to be honest with you, I did feel kind of like trapped, because everybody at that time seemed to know what they wanted to do. Friends of mine who went into aeronautical engineering, who went to become doctors, lawyers, etc. But I didn't have that peace of mind. And I feel like finding that peace of mind through the kind of course that was going to support me in my career is where it all began. And I think so. the other half of your question in terms of like, did I know what I wanted to do? I think what I've always wanted to do, and I know this might sound a bit cliche, is I always felt like my purpose was to to support other people. Like it's always been my thing. And I always, since I was a kid, I always enjoyed like supporting my classmates in their homework and their assignments. I was always that kind of kid that if you couldn't finish your homework or something, my friends would always ask me to help them, and I would do it. Like not for money or for food or anything else. Like it was just like something that I always enjoyed, like uplifting others. So I think through life experience and through my studies, I always felt like I could have a voice for other people and help support them or advocate for them or lobby for them. And I knew that my career, if I wasn't going to be a lawyer, I was going to do something else that would be similar to that, and I would be successful in it. And this is what I'm doing today.
That's very interesting. Omar, it's a very similar values that I have. But the reason I have that value, as we talk a little bit about my story before the show started, is that I got lucky to escape war. And I always think back about all the people that never got the opportunities that I had. So because of that, I feel obligated to take all the blessings that I've been given by God and to give back in some way. Now, in your own story, is there a moment or something that kind of led you to that, also that belief that you want to give back, you want to be valuable to other people as well?
Yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned, and I'm sorry that yourself and people from Somalia and everything had to like escape that war. Not too far from you, my parents were born in Zanzibar, and actually there was a revolution that forced my parents to escape as well from Zanzibar. And I think that story, although the children did not experience it, but them experiencing it, they used to always communicate the atrocities that took place and everything else. Like my grandmother had her finger chopped off, and it was so many crazy things like this. We heard a lot of stories. My grandfather's farm was burnt to the ground, all the crops that he had. So it was really bad. They lost a lot of their livelihoods. So those stories had an impact on me that forced me to not take anything for granted. And my parents always told me, just because you did not experience that, don't take everything that you have for granted. And we're going to make sure that you're not going to be spoiled. So, growing up, we were, it was kind of a strict household. Like what's common in the UAE, a lot of people, for better or for worse, grow up having house help. Or maid, as they call them sometimes, but we never had that. So when you get up to go to school, you had to make your beds. You come back home when you're having lunch, you wash the dishes. You want pocket money at the end of the month, you have to do the chores. Like everything, you have to do everything yourself. So it was a very strict regimen growing up. And my sister Aida, she can confirm the story. And I think as a result, that instilled a lot of very strong values in us that made us, be held more accountable for our actions and our surroundings and caring for other people. So, to your point, I think having to stand up for the things that matter was something that we were taught from a very young age, and I'm glad that my parents and my dad, may God rest his soul, helped instill in us.
Omar, looking at your CV, I mean, mashallah, you've started so many businesses.
Yeah.
Extensive, resume in the corporate world as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming for you to be able to do all these things, you have to have a certain level of belief in your capabilities.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a bit about that. Where did that stem from? Was it something that was instilled in you by your family, or was it through just experience?
Yeah. So, as I said earlier, so my dad, a quick backstory. My parents, they studied civil engineering. My dad worked at the UAE Armed Forces. He was actually the head of the engineering department in the army, and no business background, nothing like that. And because I had a lot of my other friends that I saw were living a little bit of a more lavish lifestyle, and I was like, so what does your dad do? You know, okay, fine. Yes, they were the ones that had their dads were like doctors or something, but I noticed the other people, like their parents were like in business, and I was like, I used to always go back to my parents and always say like, why did you not get into business? Like, why didn't you set up something? Why did you do this? Why did you do this? And I remember, to be honest, I used to, because I ask a lot of questions, I used to annoy my dad. I feel bad because I used to really like put him on the spot, like, like as if it was disappointing, like why, but it's not fair because everybody has their own path and their own thing. But so for me, we honestly didn't grow up with a lot either. We were fine. I'm not going to say it was tough, but we were fine. But it's not that I wanted us to live like in a big mansion and have 5 cars in the house or whatever. I just wanted it to be a little bit nicer, like whenever we wanted things. Because I'll tell you this, I couldn't have my first pair of like Nikes until I was like 19 years old or something. Like until I had, graduated from school, and like, when you want to wear those Jordans and your Nikes, whatever, you want to be amongst your friends in school. But my mom was like, she was very frugal with the money, mostly because she said, look, I'm saving every dime that we have to make sure you guys go to the best schools. That's what I guarantee. All of you are going to get a higher education, and she made sure that she had savings for each one of us. So I was like, oh my God. And like I felt like the poor kid, in school. So I didn't want that. And this is where it stemmed in the beginning. Like, why did I want to have like a business? Why did I want to be in business? Because I thought that this was going to make me rich, and obviously reading biographies, watching stories and all these movies about people like from Bill Gates to, Warren Buffett, all these guys, all these idols. It was what inspired me, right? But I'll tell you this, my mother's brother, my uncle Isa, he didn't even graduate school. He dropped out of school like in grade 9 or something. And he eventually went on to becoming one of the largest representative of oil and gas companies in Oman. And when I saw his success, someone who didn't finish high school, he didn't go to college, but managed to get to where he is. He has a beautiful family, he has everything. I was like, I always kept telling my mom, how can I be like my uncle Isa? And I would always see my uncle would come smelling fresh, looking fresh, dressed like a boss. He'd come home and I'm like, oh my God, this is the guy that I want. So my uncle was like my idol and my North Star. I was like, I want to be like this guy. Of course, there was no way for me to drop out of school or anything like that. My mom would kill me. So I had to pursue, whatever, my education. However, I said, I want to be like him. So he was the person who always said, he's like, okay, fine, listen to your mom, go get a job, etc. But don't rely on only one income. He's like, think about it like this. If you look at a country, like let's say we take the UAE. The UAE makes money out of oil and gas, tourism, trade, financial services, real estate. Why do you have to stick to one income? Like if you think of yourself, you as a person, like a nation, there's Nido or there's the nation of Nido. So if you just change your mindset, you can have multiple businesses, multiple streams of income. There's always people that tell you, no, maybe just focus on this one thing. There's always people trying to put you in a box. It's weird. They try to put you in a box when the earth is a circle or it's round. So that's what motivated me to get into business.
I mean, there's so many things to unpack here. So many things.
Yeah.
Let's start with this one. When you want to pursue something, let's just say in your case, you realize the world that everybody was steering you to go towards, it's not the world that would give you the objectives, the outcomes that you wanted, Yet most people will keep you there because it's safer route. Stay in school, get that guaranteed job, be certain, be secure, don't take crazy risks. This is what most people do. And this is why a lot of people, feel stuck in a job they don't like, in a career they don't like. It's like, oh my God, I've already picked this degree to study. I'm already 3 years in. It's too late to change. They don't realize life is such a long road ahead that, now it seems that there comes a moment, just like in a movie, right? where a mentor kicks in, like a Mr. Miyagi, right? And tells you, this is the path.
Yeah.
So it seems for you, that was your uncle, Uncle Isa.
Yeah.
Now, for people watching this, if you don't have Uncle Isa in your life,
That's true.
How do you overcome those limiting thoughts, the fear, the uncertainties of taking a different route?
Watch the Freedom or Nothing podcast. That's your answer.
Thank you.
No, I'll tell you this. It's a very good question. And I think, look, my Uncle Isa was I guess maybe more of the tipping point, right? But what was also more inspiring, I'll tell you this, before that, because my uncle lives in Oman, I was in the UAE. And one of the things that I truly appreciate is having a leader like Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, who's the UAE Vice President, Prime Minister and ruler of Dubai. He was always out there communicating with the media, through the media, about, look, we need to diversify our economy. Oil is going to run out. Because actually, oil ran out from Dubai much earlier. People don't know this. It ran out before because previously, of course, the UAE as a whole was one of the biggest exporters of pearls. Then the pearl economy crashed. Then we found oil. Yes, the UAE has oil. Majority of it is in Abu Dhabi, but Dubai had a bit of it, and Dubai doesn't produce oil anymore. They ran out of its reserves. So he diversified the economy very early, getting into tourism, trade, logistics, etc., and aviation, and that for me was a man that truly was inspiring. And I was like, oh my God, look at this drive that he has. And it's like he's never had enough. He announces this, next thing he's announcing something else. It was week after week or month after month. And I'm like, oh my God. He made you feel and give you, and it was almost like some kind of a positive virus of entrepreneurship. You gotta do something. He was always driving that. And that's one of the things that I really love, by the way, because some people, when they look at my resume, they're like, oh my God, you started working at a very young age. He encouraged Emiratis to work and study at the same time. That's why when I graduated from high school, I was a full-time employee and a part-time student. So I used to work from 8 to 4 and go to university from 5 to 9. And I know in the States particularly, people would say, oh yeah, everybody works. Yeah, they work, but maybe they'll work in McDonald's or in the cinema, they'll be ushering in the cinema and stuff. No, I'm talking about a full-time corporate job, a 9 to 5. So I was doing that kind of work. My first job was in a bank. So I am always, always grateful to His Highness, because he allowed for the system where Emiratis, just with a high school diploma, could work in a full-time role, and obviously through training and everything else. And then 6.5 years after I finished my bachelor's degree, I already had 6.5 years of work experience at a very young age. I came out, I could already get managerial roles, and my salary was pretty good at a very young age. And I already had the soft skills of dealing with office politics and all that BS, and everything. So it was pretty cool to get that experience at a young age. So my advice to you, back to your question, if you don't have a person like an idol, like a Mr. Miyagi or Uncle Isa, or it's be inquisitive and expose yourself to inspiring people. They definitely exist in every single country, in every city, in every town. There's always this one person that sticks out as a source of inspiration for others. That's the person, man or woman, young or old, is the person that I advise people to go out and listen to what they're saying, and get inspired by their story. There's a lot of people who sometimes, you could look at a piece of news. You could say, oh yeah, I read this article, this thing is being announced or whatever. But there's looking at it, and then there's analyzing it. So if you analyze it and let it bounce off of you and think, how does this affect me? Or how would it affect me? If you take that into consideration, that's the thing that will keep you going, and you say, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to follow through with this. And this has been almost, honestly, this is not just a story for me. I think, Nido, you know very well. It's been kind of like the same kind of narrative that most people who did something, whether they ended up becoming billionaires, millionaires, whatever, or just people who found freedom in their lives, it's because something or someone inspired them this way.
There are so much inspirational people in this world. I mean, you've just mentioned Sheikh Mohammed, how he's been inspirational to you and to so many people.
Yeah.
There are so many, whether podcasts or YouTube channels, content available. So my question to you is this: when people already know what they want, they have the plan on how to get there. They have the desire for change. They have everything except the one thing. They don't take action.
True. Oof. Oh yeah.
So
I love this question.
My question to you is, how do you get to that tipping point?
Okay. You know, I'd love to share this story. This one particular part. I know maybe we're going to be skipping a few things, but I want to go straight into this one very important point that answers this question, okay? So, Nino, 2017 was a very big year because it was kind of the pinnacle of a lot of things going on in my life. Something came to my mind. I mean, I was working. At this point, I was already the head of a department. I used to work at the Department of Culture and Tourism in Abu Dhabi, okay? I was working there. I had like 20 people in my team. I was doing really well. At this point, I've already been in Abu Dhabi tourism for like around 5.5, 6 years, okay? And I had this kind of, like some kind of an awareness, an epiphany. I was working in this one tower, and I was living in the tower next to it. And the place that I was living in was amazing. I'm telling you, I was living the dream. I was living in the building where they filmed Fast and Furious 7 or whatever. I was literally, it was amazing. I had everything at this point. I had a really good car, I had a really good apartment. I had a great team, great title, great salary, everything. Like there was nothing that needed to get disrupted at this point. But you know, after doing that for like the last 6 years, waking up in a box, getting into a box, driving that box, going to the next box, staring into a box, 8 to 4, eating from a box, going back into my box, driving back. Like I was literally going through this way, and I was like, this is not the freedom I wanted. I'm like, seriously? And I remember talking to my mom about this, and I was like, you know, Ma, my mom, by the way, I gotta tell you this, okay? For the record, the entire time, my mom's always been against entrepreneurship with me. Never. Every time I told her I had an idea, she always wanted to push it down. She wanted to shut down every single idea that I had. She never supported any. She always just wanted me to have a full-time job. This was my mom's like thing, you know? She's like, you're not like your uncle, you know, whatever. It's not safe, it's not secure, whatever. Anyways,
we might
now
have the
imagine.
same mom.
Oh yeah, there we go. So then imagine me going to my mom and telling her this. Oh my God, it's almost like I was going to give her a heart attack, you know? And I remember even telling my dad at the time. And then my dad was like, you know, welcome to the world. This is the way life is. Because my dad was in the army for like 30 years. So imagine someone like him working in a job for like 30 years. It was pretty normal for people at that time to work a job for like 20, 30, 40 years and never like leave, and you know, unless they retire. And I was like, hell no, not me. I can't. For me, it will kill me. So then what happened in that year is on my birthday, my dad passed away. Yeah. But I'm very happy because my dad was, my dad actually, the way he passed, he was praying Fajr in the mosque, and then he passed away. So that was pretty cool. Anyways, he died peacefully. So, so what happened is I literally just went to work and I put in my resignation. And I was like, I'm not going to do this. I handed in my resignation. I didn't have another like job secured, anything. I just said I'm just going to, and they didn't want me to leave. They said we're going to increase your salary. We'll promote you and everything else. I just said it's not even about that. I'm like, this whole story about the box. I said this to my boss. He thought I was crazy. He was like, "Are you okay? Do you want to take a break for a while and come back?" I said, "No, I mean it. I don't want to do this anymore." I'm like, something's not right. This is not happiness. Out of nowhere, Nido, I have a friend of mine, and his name is Sharif Fahmy. Sharif is actually, he's from Minnesota. He's originally Egyptian, but he was born in Minnesota and everything. And he used to work at the White House. And he said, "Have you ever heard about the Fulbright?" I said, "Yeah, I know what the Fulbright scholarship is." He said, "Have you ever considered it?" I said, "Yeah," but he's like, "Why don't you never apply for it?" I said, "Because, there's no way I'm going to get it." He's like, "Why are you saying that?" He's like, "No, you have everything of why you would get it, And I was like, "No, I don't think so." He's like, "You have nothing to lose." And I was like, fine, whatever. So I applied for it. And during that time, I had applied for it. And then out of nowhere, I got a call to be a radio host for this new radio station that started out of Sharjah. It was the first English radio station, and they wanted me to be one of the hosts. And I was like, "Oh, perfect." It gave me something to do, at least, because I had nothing else really like going on at the time. And so I did the radio, and then I started the application, and it takes about a year for you to get approved if they want you or not, because you got to do tests, you got to do interviews, you got to do your essays, recommendation letters. It's a long process for the Fulbright. SubhanAllah, out of nowhere, 2019, I got the Fulbright scholarship. And every time I meet Americans, I'm like, "Thank you," because it's your taxpayer money that paid for my trip to the States. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. And I got the Fulbright, went to the States 2019 through the scholarship, did my master's in Florida State University. And yeah, everything changed from there. But like to just very quickly to answer your question in terms of like, where's that call to action? I think you have to, something either has to come to you, or you have to question yourself and see, we always have to take a step back and ask ourselves, how are we doing? How am I doing? How am I doing with my family, with myself first, with my relationship with God, with my relationship with people? Sometimes we don't really notice that the way that we interact with other people, we might think it's normal, but you don't know that you might be offending people. So sometimes I ask that question. I'm like, "Look, I hope what I said was okay. The way that I said it, I hope it didn't come off like arrogant. I didn't come off arrogant or something like that." We have to. People don't ask that. You have to, because you don't know. Because you may think, "Oh, you woke up in the day and you went back home and you slept and you didn't commit a sin." But even pissing off someone could be a sin. And you don't know like what's the last impression you're going to leave before you go. It could happen just like that. And that my father's death is one of them. He was fine, completely fine. He had no major whatever. He had a stroke, gone, nothing, just out of nowhere. He was still working. My dad was still working. He was 62 years old, which isn't much.
He's young.
Yeah, he's just like started, So you never know. So I always tell people, you got to think. You never know.
Yeah.
When it's your time. So that's what happened. So for me, that was the kind of the conversation I have with myself, maybe because I talk to myself a lot. And I encourage that, by the way, because it really helps. And then when you do that, it will help you kind of see whether you should get out of your comfort zone or not. And I got out of my comfort zone. I was technically in my comfort zone, which was terrible. And I was like, let me disrupt this. What's the worst that can happen? Okay, get a job. I'll hustle. And something will come.
Yeah. There are two things that I see most people struggle with. One, you just hit it, nail on the head, which is they don't look in the time factor. They think they have so much time. there's no sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Right? So they
Yeah.
might have a job they don't like, they might have something that they want to change. They'll get to it someday, but that day never comes.
Yeah.
The other thing is fear of failure. And for some reason, people think when someone is successful, they don't endure failure. So what I want you to share is, especially like when you initially started the business, your first business, I think it was a dress shop.
Yeah.
You know, I could just imagine your mom's face when you're like, "Oh, I'm gonna start."
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What was that learning experience like?
So I'll tell you this. So even before the dress shop, there was something. I had an advertising agency.
Okay.
I liked, because I was in marketing, and because Dubai was booming and everything else. The first business, like in each business that I failed in, I can tell you very quickly what happened. Advertising business, there was a lot of demand. We were getting customers. What was the problem? My partner and I put a lot of the money, the initial money, into the fancy office. We had a really nice office on Sheikh Zayed Road. At that time, it was like the thing. I wanted to go around showing people my business card. Here's my address. You know, now it's funny, like nobody cares. You could be completely remote. Right. Nobody cares if your company's licensed on Mars, you know, like, right. You know, as long as you get the job done, right? It's changed completely. The address doesn't matter. Anyways, so we're getting clients, very high capex and opex initially, because I wasn't getting paid on time by clients, because either they would pay you like 10% or sometimes nothing and tell you to start because you had to compete with other companies. And then 6 months down the line, literally 6 months, we had no money to pay anybody, not the receptionist, not the creative designers, nobody. And they were going to go to the police. I had to get my mom to bail me out, and she said, if I give you this money, you're going to close the company. I'm not doing anything beyond this. Like, that's it. So yeah, first lesson, I was humbled very quickly, cash flow. Lesson number 2, it was the dress shop, as you said. We opened the dress shop. I did not focus on the fine print, which is getting exclusivity for those particular brands from the US. Opened in a terrible location. Another company saw that these clothes were moving pretty fast. They were already in a mall here in Dubai, a very large mall, which you probably can tell. And of course, imagine if you can get the same thing at a mall where you can then have the full experience of everything else rather than going to like a dodgy location. It was a really terrible location. It shut down because we were basically cut off by competition that was selling the same thing at even a cheaper rate than we could, you know? So not getting exclusivity. So not working with a lawyer is a huge problem. So cash flow, not working with a lawyer. Third one, opening a barbershop. That was the next one. Open the barbershop. The problem is people management. And because dealing with people that work in the service industry, I'm not saying everyone has this problem and all the time, but for me it was very special. And unfortunately we couldn't keep up with it because these people were robbing us. Like, although we had cameras, they had ways of, because when you're in the salon business, you're with a cash business, they were able to smuggle the cash away from the register in many ways, you know, or sometimes get the client to pay them from outside. They take clients on private, sessions and stuff like that. It was really, really crazy. So I couldn't deal with all the drama, then I had to shut that down. So after all these different businesses, it took me a while until doing what I'm doing right now to even consider having another business. But yeah, I learned my lesson more ways than one.
So those businesses, obviously, they're all different types.
Different types.
You're right. What was your selection process? Were you just, how did you come up with the idea of starting those businesses?
Literally, this is a great question, Nido. Each one of them was because like I was looking at not just it was kind of like a trend. At that time, when we set up the advertising agency, it was because there was a huge boom. Dubai, 2004, they launched freehold. You didn't have freehold properties in Dubai before. Because of that, you started seeing these massive billboards I don't know if you know this, but these huge billboards that are on like Sheikh Zayed Road and the rest of them, minimum to get a billboard like that, it's like 10 million.
Wow.
10, 15, 20 million. Maybe, I'm sure it's way more. At that time, it was 10 million dirhams. So imagine what the price is right now to get that. So imagine if you're the agency that has to design and print one of those ads that are on the highways. It's a lot of, so I was trying to get into the business where you could see there's a demand for it. Barbershop as well. Suddenly, this new trend of like more hip kind of barbershops, which are very typical, like in the West, the whole concept of like fades and, it got exported to the UAE. So everybody wanted to open a barbershop that would give you like a really clean fade or something like that. And even the barbers were like kind of cool. They would come from like Nigeria, Cameroon, like these places in Africa. So we wanted to make it a kind of a hip feel. It wasn't like because a typical barbershop here where, you're just there in front of the mirror and that's it. But we had like in front of every chair, there'd be a TV screen and you can watch your favorite like soccer team here, as opposed to like probably in the West, you're watching a basketball game or NBA or NFL, whatever. So this was the second business. Then the third one on the dress business, I mean, every single brand was coming to the UAE. All these like huge brands were popping up. More people are moving here, so the demand for wedding dresses, evening gowns was picking up. So that's why I got into that business. So each one, it was literally looking at what was the demand, but none of them was necessarily something that I really wanted to do. And I don't encourage people to open a business because it's your passion. You don't have to, open a business to be successful, to open a business that will follow your passion, but follow something that will serve the masses, that will work. Now, these businesses, they all work actually. A lot of dress shops work, a lot of barber shops work, but for each kind of business, it takes a certain kind of personality. And for me, like for example, even with the barbershop, I'm too nice. No wonder those guys took advantage of me, The dress shop, it was also like kind of weird, because it was only dresses for women, whatever. I couldn't, 9 times out of 10, I couldn't feel comfortable walking in. I mean, we had a lady that was dealing with the female customers, but it just felt weird, like stepping in there, you want to just give them their space, So yeah, everything that I did, I kind of was in something that I wasn't very comfortable myself to be in those surroundings of those businesses.
First, I want to reemphasize something very important that you said, which is when you start a business, you want to first understand what the market wants. A lot of people think, I really like this. This is a great thing or great idea. And they don't test it just because they love it. They think everybody else is going to love it. They invest time, money, and energy. Next thing you know is, it falls flat on its face. But when you understand that business is really all about solving a problem, understand what problem is out there in the marketplace and how you can solve it. And especially if you can solve it different, if you can make it, better, faster, whatever your methodology is, that is like one-on-one business. But a lot of times when I talk to people who got into business, it's either because they saw someone else that did it and it worked for them. They don't understand all the work that actually went into it, the research, the product, the quality, all that stuff. They think they can just copy and paste. It doesn't work like that.
That's true.
Or they think because someone told them it's a great idea or they thought it was a great idea. Now the other,
that was actually that.
Right. But my question to you is this though: it's that you started your first 3 businesses that you mentioned for one reason or another. It didn't go as planned. You experienced the 3 knockdown rule, right? And most people would give up on the first business. So what kept you going after seeing all this?
Proving my mother wrong. Because I remember always telling my mom, Ma, I'm going to be a millionaire. I remember telling her I'll be a millionaire when I was a teenager. I don't know why I had this thing. And then, especially after I turned 20, she's like, what happened? You said you're going to be, I was like, oh, actually, even my sister Ida, they used to laugh. And I was like, okay, no worries. I'll show you. But, she always Yeah, I wanted to prove her wrong. I think it was that because she was always scared that I was not going to be successful and whatever. But I got to tell you that, I forgot to mention the one business I do have as well till today. I do have an events agency in Saudi Arabia. And I started that company actually after leaving Abu Dhabi Tourism. And when we did one deal, from that one deal, I helped my mom buy a house. So I was like, Ma,
How did
I
that
told you I
feel?
was going to do it. I asked her that question. She's like, well, you weren't ready earlier. Yeah, she's like, she'll never, I'm like, no, I know, but what did you tell me? But when I showed her my account and she saw all those zeros, I was like, what did I tell you? I'm like, maybe I wasn't a teenager. I'm not a teenager now, but I told you I was going to make it. But I believed it. You have if you really want to achieve something and you tell yourself truly you believe in that concept and don't only tell yourself, tell others that you're going to do it and work on it. You're going to make it happen. One of the reasons, sometimes they tell you people like don't tell anyone until you actually make it. I understand that. But when you tell at least like some people close to you, when you do that, you feel like you're being held accountable because then they always remind you, what happened? What happened? What happened? When you did my introduction, like you said, I was an author, etc. When I told people I was an author, I told them before I even had the book. When they would ask me, I would tell them, oh, I'm working on it. I'm not an author yet. Like I could say I'm an author in the making, but I just said I'm an author. But for me, because I'm the kind of person, like I work best under pressure. The moment something comes out of my mouth, if I say I will do this and this, if I say I'll do something for you, I guarantee you I'm going to do it. If I'm still alive and I'm well, I'll do it. When I'll do it is another thing, but I usually, if I give you a date as well, I'll also do it by that time. Otherwise, I will never say something. So with everything else, whether it was with the business or with me writing a book or whatever, the moment I say I'm going to do something, I do it. That's the thing that I feel like I'm mostly proud of for myself, like till the day I die, is that I always stuck to my word. If I tell anybody anything, I will do it for you.
I want to go back to another point because I think I resonate a lot with it. A lot of people don't like to admit something that, which I'm about to say, is that when you ask them, what is your drive to become successful? You'll see a lot of people tell you, well, I just want to make a lot of money, my family, all these other things. But the truth is for a lot of people, actually, the number one driver, the thing that keeps them going is to prove people wrong.
Yeah.
Like I am so honest about this. Anyone asks me, nope. My drive, I love my kids, but I don't wake up 5 a.m. and work all day to make them happy. Yeah. Because it gets to a point where they're satisfied. If you want materialistic stuff, it gets to a point where you have almost everything that you want. Yeah. But when you think about the moments where someone laughed at you because you said something, or someone looked at you like like who's this guy think he is? They might not even say it, but they make you feel so little. Yeah. And you have a choice at that moment. That choice is, do you agree that self-identity they're shaping you to be? And by the way, and this can be family, and it could be out of love. Right? Yeah. Like if you're with your brother or your sister that you've been playing with since you were kids, and all they see you is this like little annoying brother, and you tell them you want to be a millionaire or a billionaire, they're not gonna see that. So how hard is it to hold on to your vision and to hold on to your goals and your dreams when literally everybody else that you tell it to or hear about it, they kind of laugh about it?
I know. And you're absolutely right. It's almost all the things that I've done is always to prove other people wrong. And again, it's kind of weird to say this, that I always say like it's my mom, because she was always, and I understand and I love you, Ma. I understand for her, it's mostly out of, protecting. It's out of protection, out of love. Like she just doesn't want me to be disappointed. She doesn't want me to lose or end up like on the street someday or whatever. Like it was that. But we have to cut that. My mom grew up poor. I told my mom, we have to cut this chain. Let's build generational wealth. Let's start with having bigger vision. Like let's have with having, inshallah, like if I have children someday, they become like inventors or innovators or whatever. Like we want a generation of that, not a generation of who are like okay with the basic. Because my mom was always like that. No, it's okay. Just get a nice job and grow. Like do very well. Like she'd tell me like, oh, if you get promoted and whatever, do this, and then you come home, save this and whatever, and then come home. And I'm like, no, ma, that's too basic. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened. I don't know how I came out of your womb and it was like this, but something in your prayer did not work. Because maybe your prayer was answered, but it was answered in a different way, because I'm not like that. She would always be like, why are you the only one to give me this headache? Your siblings are all fine. Nobody's doing anything else. Everybody has a decent job. You're working 24/7. You want to do all these crazy things. And I'm like, Ma, because I can. And because I want to. Like, I want to be, like for me, I've always told her, like I see myself, Nido, I recognize myself as a global citizen from the UAE. I want to be able to, at any point, if one day, if I had to live in Somalia, can I live in Somalia? Could I survive there? Why not? And can I, somebody will tell me, you can't. You know what? We'll find out. Or if I was in India, or if I was in Egypt, or Japan, or the States, or Mexico, or Venezuela, or whatever. We have to, and as you know, in Arabic or in the Quran, this is Ard Allah wasa, and it's God's world is massive and it's expansive, and you can choose to be anywhere. You're not a tree; you can move. So if you're not a tree, let's explore. Let's see how. Let's explore our limitations. All these amazing Arab inventors, scholars, explorers, they weren't who they were because they sat in one place. They were people that went beyond the horizons. So that's what I aspire. This is always, till now I tell people, I'm just getting started. I'm not even where I want to be. There's still a long way. I wish there's another like 40, 50 years of this energy and I can keep going and see how far can I go.
With your mom, I feel like it's not a matter of proving her wrong, but you want to make her proud, but on your own way.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
On your own way.
That's even a nicer, okay, yeah, she probably like that better.
You know? Because I'm in the same boat. That's okay. Why I said, you know? Because at the end of the day, they want the best for you.
Yeah. But
they haven't seen the journey that you're going on and what that leads to.
Yeah.
They might have seen, you know, the husbands or uncles or brothers all took the safe path. They lived a comfortable life, but maybe they haven't seen deep down inside were they really happy.
You're right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you are choosing success, but also on your own terms.
Yeah. And you know, and thank you. That's very well said, Nido. And I'll tell you this, to add to your point. Also, now from my dad's side, my dad is from the Albusaidy tribe. When I have my family tree up to 1871, and I know a little bit more, but the actual tree, what I can read is up to this. When I read their stories of my forefathers, they were warriors, they were leaders, they were, you know, so many great positions. I was like, I want to continue this legacy. So inshallah, one day when I have kids, I want them to know these stories and say, listen, let's continue this. You're going to be this Omar Albusaidy. You gotta like carry this. There's some sort of a privilege and a responsibility when you're born into a name that carries a lot of weight and history and achievements and everything else. Like when you go to Oman, in Oman in Muscat, there's a National Museum of Oman, or there's another museum close to a place called Nizwa. It's called Oman Through the Ages. There's a whole section called Albusaidy Dynasty. I was like, you must be kidding me. When I was there, I literally was crying. When I saw the history, the legacy of what my forefathers have achieved, I was like, are you kidding me? I cannot be anything less than this. And I have to try to keep up at some point, you know? And I'm glad, now, it's an honor to be here, like to be featured on your podcast, to talk about this story. It's kind of like proof of like, listen, this legacy was meant to be discussed. So I have these things that sometimes I know it could sound a little bit silly or maybe like too, like it sounds like Hollywood or whatever, but I feel, no, I feel it's important. I don't know, something in me makes me feel like, no, this is something that should be discussed. So I'm glad to be here.
Talking about legacy, you wrote a book.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about it. I think just read it.
Just read it. Yeah. So look, I sometimes I kind of like dislike that I call the book. I wish I could call it something else. Honestly, what happened is after those experiences in the different businesses, I was invited in many schools and universities to lecture about entrepreneurship. Right. So I used to prepare these PowerPoint presentations, and I'd go to class and I'm giving the presentation. One thing that used to annoy me is as I'm there giving these lectures and telling people certain, like the skill sets and things that you need to do about entrepreneurship, nobody would take notes. The class is full every week. No one's taking notes. And I was like, guys, you have to take notes. So because I used to repeat this command all the time, one of the girls that used to sit on the front, she was like, sir, we like to listen to you speak, but we don't like taking notes. She's like, I like to read. Why don't you write a book? I said, you know what? I'll write a freaking book. If that's what it takes, I'll do it. I had no intention of writing a book. I did it literally just to satisfy these kids. And yeah, I wrote it because of that. I wrote the book, and then the title, some people were like, oh, why did you call it Just Read It? I'm like, honestly, I don't know what it is, why I called it this, because the book, it's not necessarily about business, and it's not about like life. It's a combination about different things. And I feel like if you just like read it, you don't know what you'll get out of it, whether you're an employee, an aspiring entrepreneur, whatever. Yeah. And when people tell me, so one of my friends, I told her this. I said, I just want people to just read it. She's like, why don't you call it that? I said, what? She's like, just read it. So I went online. I was like, okay, let me see. There was no book called Just Read It. And I called it Just Read It, and that's it. Yeah.
I actually think it's catchy.
Right?
I like it.
There's some people who tell me, oh, it sounds very like cocky. Like, why? Like, just read it. I'm like, no. I'm like, look, it all comes down to perspective, like how you look at it. Yeah. I'm like, if you look at it, like, just read it. Like, oh, just read it. Like, just eat it. Like, just, just try it. Just try this. Just do it. Just do it. Right? Yeah. Just read it. Yeah. So that's how it came up.
Omar, you've spent quite some time in the States.
Yeah.
And obviously you're Emirati.
Yeah.
I've lived here for 7 years.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. And I also grew up in the States.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the opportunities in both parts of the world. And more specifically, where do you see the future opportunities lie?
Okay, that is a wonderful question. I did not know. So I have a very good friend of mine, and he's a mentor as well. His name is Nido Abdo. He's originally like Senegalese, but he's an American citizen now. He was French and now he's American. And in Chicago, there's one of the largest private investment firms. It's called Northern Trust. He used to work at Northern Trust, and now he set up his own investment fund. Mamadou told me one statistic, just one day, because he's in private banking. And he's like, do you know what's the size of the US economy? He asked me one day. And I said, I don't know, maybe, because when I look at the debt, I'm thinking maybe the debt, I don't know, $10 trillion. I'm thinking maybe like 10 or something like that. And I think 10 is already like a lot. He's like, are you kidding me, Omar? He's like, the US economy, it's between 50 to 60 trillion dollars. I said, what? He's like, the US economy, only if you look at the US. He's like, why do you think it's a superpower? It's like just the size of the US economy alone. And he's like, you have all these 50 states, it's like 50 countries, I guess, or whatever. Each state, this state is worth like 10 trillion, or this one, or this one. And I was like, wow. He's like, think about it. This is where the money's at. He's like, people don't see it like this. You have is like the highest spending, the power or the propensity to spend or to purchase. It's in the US. He's like, everybody has to be, they have to have a credit line. How many people have more than one credit card? This. So the more he kept talking, I was like, oh my God, I haven't been thinking right all this time. Yes, it's true. There's money to be made in other places, whatever. But if you look at this, if one country is worth the economies of multiple countries, continents together, he's like, think about the size of this place. And you have like almost 400 million people, etc., etc. He's like, this is where the money is at. He's like, that's why I came to the US. He lived in England for 10 years. He was born in France. He is originally from Senegal. He's like, I could be in Senegal. I could be in France. I could be in the UK. Why did I come over here? Because he's like, I know where the money is at. And when I saw the house that he lives in, the car that he drives, everything. I looked at his family. Kids are in like some French private school in the States. I was like, okay.
I say make money in America,
Yeah.
but enjoy it elsewhere.
Exactly. Yeah,
You know,
that's it. Exactly it.
But you're right.
Yeah.
That's where the money is.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So I thought, you know what? Yeah. So to your question, what did I realize living over there in these last 6 years? Oh my God, the money is in America. There's money to be made everywhere, but there's a lot there as well, which is why, including our government, why do we invest into so many companies, into so many government assets? Why do we invest in the US Treasury bills? Like, why do we invest in those bonds and this and everything else? It's because it's crazy. I mean, I look at the performance of even a small savings that I have on my Charles Schwab account, on the ETFs and the mutual funds and whatever. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, all the money that I've ever put in the stock market here never gave me a return as quick as this in these ETFs. I'm like, hell no, the money is there. No. That's a stock market, or that's a market. That's a financial market. Not the market that I've been investing in this whole time. No. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
two final questions. One is, out of all the things that you've done and achieved, I know you're still 38.
Yeah.
Still like not even halftime yet, right? You still got a long way to go.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
What is the thing that you're most proud about?
The thing that I'm most proud about, I love that question. I think it's, making my parents proud. I feel like my mom is definitely, like, I look at her, I feel it in her hug. Like, she hugs me, the way she hugs me, and I can feel like the pride in her. My dad, I remember, and even the last few years before that, I remember my father said one time that he was proud of me because he heard his colleagues talking about my book to him in the office. But to be honest with you, as much as family is very important, there are some people that are, I believe they're literally like humans. God made them like angels on earth, like human, in a human form. Sharif Fahmi had no reason. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. And honestly, Nido, we're not very close. We know each other. I can say we're friends, but we're not those kind of people that I've known like since I grew up. But out of nowhere, someone like him felt the need to push me to do something because all he saw was something in me and wanted me to benefit from this. Recommended me on an amazing scholarship, changed my life. There are people like that I feel that wallah, honestly, God's watching over you, like over everyone. And the more you recognize that, the more you seek that conversation with God, He will bring people to you. You have no idea. They can come to you and be more impactful than your own family. So try not to forget that. I tell people, like, yeah, it's good. Get the blessings of your parents, but also don't shut off from everybody else. It could be anyone where when you least expect it. They'll come from nowhere, and then they open the doors, and you're like, oh my God, wow. So remember those people. And sometimes some people, I'm sure it happens for so many of us, all of us maybe, but we forget them. So don't forget those people.
Yeah.
Remember them and like message them or check in on them every once in a while. Like just how they did it with you, maybe they need you at this time. So if you remember that, that'll be very important.
Yeah. And what I love about what you said is that I really, really believe that there's science to life, right? So God obviously is the creator, but he didn't just create it just to show, how powerful he is.
Yeah.
He created us based on certain processes. And if you pay attention, you can see the similarities, you can see the commonalities. Another way I can give this example is if you watch a movie, right, there's a process called the hero's journey.
Yeah.
Almost every single movie you can think about, it follows that same process.
Yeah.
Right. There's a guy in the movie, is a mom or a dad, they're living their normal life. Something happens, a monster comes, or someone kidnaps their kid, and then the next thing you know is they're forced to go on this journey, which discovers themselves and brings out their inner hero. Right.
Yeah.
Every movie has the same script.
Yeah.
And life is the same. Like as you're talking about Sharif coming into your life, I can say, I remember when this person came into my life. Right. Yeah. But the thing is, a lot of people, most people, unfortunately, they ignore those callings.
It's true.
Right. They're like, I want this, I pray for this. And God is like, okay, but I'm trying. You remember the guy that sat next to you on the bus? Yeah. Or remember when this opportunity came? Or you remember, they don't take that action.
100%. So
my last question to you is this. For people watching this, and they feel like there's more to life. They know there's a lot bigger things that they can achieve, but there's just something stopping them from achieving their freedom. What advice would you give them to make it happen?
My advice is be cautiously vulnerable. Like be open, like open your heart, open your mind, like literally, like just be more open. Because a lot of us is because we're too reserved. We're like we like to stay in our own bubbles. We like to protect our energy and everything else. But the moment you open yourself, you'll be surprised like the amount of opportunities. Because when you open yourself, you believe that God is my protector and he's the one that will give and provide and everything else. And believe that people, opportunities, the places that we go to, all these things are blessings. Like believe that these things are blessings, and the more you expose yourself to it, like cautiously, but you at the same time you're open to it, the more you will reap its rewards and its benefits. So that's how I always achieve everything. It's the same as, listen, there are people who could be called in for this podcast, but I might, you know what? I don't know much about it. Maybe it does not had like billions of views around the world or this, whatever. But be open to go. Just go. Like make the most out of it. You never know. It's the same. Sometimes I'll go to a talk. I've had talks where I had like hundreds or even 1,000 people in a room. And I had a talk when literally there was like 5 people. And those 5 people were like even perfect. It's fine. It's like the organizer will be like, oh, I'm so sorry. They didn't have enough attendees coming. I'll be like, don't feel shy. It's all good. Let's have the call. Rather than it being like with me standing on the stage, I'll be like, let's do a round table like this. Let's sit down like this. So the more you open yourself, you'll be surprised. One of my biggest achievement, I want to say like as well, like after going to the States as well, and I think my pride and joy is finding my wife. I met her in university. Her name's Hannah, and we met in class. Because that was another thing. Like my mom was driving her nuts. Like she was like, "Are you ever gonna get married, or like you're just gonna, like you're doing all these things? You think about business and whatever." I was like, "Ma, you know what? I know my wife is in the US. she's not here. No, not here. I tried. It's not in the UAE, and went to the States, and yeah.
So be open.
Exactly, and
to
you never
life's
know.
gifts and life's opportunities and everything that life has to provide.
Exactly.
Omar, really enjoyed this episode.
Thank
so
you.
much
Habibi.
stories, wisdom. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thank
joining
you.
us, and looking forward to.
Thank you for having me, Nido.
My pleasure.
Well, honestly, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.